Alrighty guys, we're going to be taking a look at the Beaver Craft Bushcraft knife. It's nice that it comes with it looks like a nice leather sheath, right? I'm not a big fan of the Beaver Craft logo, personally. It just kind of makes things look cheap. Just, for some reason, that symbol just associated with cheap in my head, and it just looks cheap. It is cheap, so, you know. You take a look at the knife. The handle shape's interesting. The scales are screw-on, so those can be tightened. And the tang and the scales aren't lined up perfectly. I don't know if that little corner's by design or what, but they're also not flat. I can see a gap in between the tang and the scales in some places. I won this knife off of Instagram many moons ago. I've really only used it a couple times. When I first got it, I kind of tested it out a little bit. I forget the exact model number. Son of a bitch. The face tracking came on. So, but it's a Bushcraft knife from Beaver Craft. And I don't know if any of you guys know anything about Beaver Craft, but I don't see a lot of videos on this knife out there, and a lot of people are probably wondering about Beaver Craft. I've had a lot of experience with Beaver Craft. When I first got into wood carving, I got a bunch of their gouges and their knives. And for entry-level carving knives, they're fine. They're not the best knives. They work. Similar budget knives in that price range, I would recommend a different brand. There's Flex Cut and Profile, however you say that. There's a bunch of other options out there. But how is their Bushcraft knife? Fit and finish isn't like super great or anything, but this is a $30 knife. And it comes with a dangler, comes with a little leather sheath that doesn't seem too bad. So for 30 bucks, this is what you get. So yeah, not a big fan of this. I can see that coming off, losing your knife somewhere. But we'll test it out. There's the loop. The leather doesn't feel very nice. It comes with the Scandi grind, and it's got a pretty good polish on that blade. It's pretty reflective. It's listed as stainless steel, I believe, so I think it's a high carbon stainless steel, and obviously it's not going to be anything super fancy, but you know, for 30-some dollars you get this. So we're gonna see if this is just as good as other knives in that territory. When you compare the leather between the Condor sheath and the Beaver Craft, this leather just feels much nicer. It's thicker, it's stiffer. It just feels more high quality. I don't really know much about leather and quality of leather, but I think it's pretty obvious to tell that the Condor has much nicer leather. So you got the Beaver Craft made in Ukraine, Mora, of course, made in Sweden, and then the Condor made in El Salvador. I've had this for quite a while. It's been beat up pretty good. None of these knives have been sharpened. I'll show you how sharp they are. I could have sharpened these all and put fresh edges on them, but didn't want to do that. So this is a $30 knife too. Doesn't have the best edge on it. Like I said, this one got beat up quite a bit. It's still cutting through paper. The tip got a little messed up. I tried fixing that a little bit just to kind of give it a fair. You get the Bush Lore by Condor and only spend a little bit more. And this is based off of the Ray Mears knife. And I've beat the heck out of this knife. I've had it for a long time. It's gone through a lot of bad sharpenings. But this is a really good knife if you're looking to get into some Bushcraft stuff. This one might be a little duller than the rest. Very similar. So this one's probably duller than the rest. And next up is this. And this one's probably the sharpest. So this guy will get an advantage in the testing. So we'll see if that helps out or not. I'm going to start off with some simple carving tasks. This is some green wood. I'm going to have to go search for some stuff to baton with and whatnot. This wood's pretty hard. Being a Scandi grind, wood is going to be its strong suit. Right off the bat, this handle, although I like the way it feels in my hand, but when I start carving, I feel like this is going to be problematic for a lot of different grips, and I feel like for a lot of power cuts, this is going to fatigue my hand and become uncomfortable. But like when you first pick it up, it feels good. But I think that was a bad design choice for this particular style of knife. I'm going to try the other two just to kind of compare, get a better feel of how they carve on this particular piece of wood. Yeah, that reverse grip is terrible. I don't like that at all. I guess you could position it like that. Do some rolling cuts. It's not terrible. It's drilling a good hole. That's actually really good, honestly. Very good. Very good for drilling. I know this wood isn't completely dry, it's wet. It's not bad. Handle shape is fatiguing my hand more than I feel like another knife would. For me personally, I like neutral shaped handles, and this is neutral, I guess, for the most part, but this curve is really weird. No, I'm really not digging that. Before we get too carried away, let's see what the fire steel striking's like. That's pretty good. Already, right off the bat, this thing feels way better carving. You're not going to get the strength of the full tang like you do with the Beaver Craft, but this handle is really nice, and this is cutting way better. Already, that's a much more enjoyable experience carving. Now this is the one that the tip kind of got messed up. I tried to strop it out a little bit and hit it with the ceramic just to try to get any rolls or burrs out of it, just to make it more fair. So this tip isn't as pristine as the Beaver Craft. Side by side. Right off the bat, this Mora is a way more capable carving knife. If you're doing a lot of bushcraft projects that involve a lot of carving, fine carving, I love this knife. This is a great knife. More classic, 30 bucks, simple. This is the kind of handle I like. Super neutral, no guard. That's what I like. This is definitely my cup of tea. But this thing is way better right off the bat. That can carve, don't get me wrong. But the Mora Classic is going to do it way better. Let's check out the bush lore. Let's see what this old bird can do. It's kind of not fair because it's kind of got a convex edge to it, so. For not being as sharp as the other two knives, this one is cutting really well. Whew, that's a tough call to make between the Mora and the bush lore. This video isn't about those two knives, so we're just going to compare two budget knives to the Beaver Craft. So out of the two I've tested, this one's come in last place, at least for carving so far. So let's move on to something else. Easy peasy. Most of the time when you're out in the woods and you're using these for a baton, you're doing small pieces for fire, you know, or maybe a little project. So right off the bat, Mora knives are tough, don't get me wrong, but they're also stick-tang knives, and they're not going to be able to handle a lot of this abuse. Small stuff, sure. And even the Classic, being a wood handle, is probably not going to handle it as well as the other Mora knives that have polymer handles. But that being said, it's going to be able to take care of small stuff. I mean, they all baton very similar. All the blade stocks thicknesses are very, very similar. I would say they're all pretty equal in batoning. But since this show's about the Beaver Craft, so let's put this Beaver Craft through some work. So that was that piece. Got another piece, got a pretty good knot in there. Another piece. There it goes. So this is the last piece I have left to baton. This little elbow here. Oh, look at that. Holy crap. Let's get this knife out of there. Did you guys see how bent that was? That thing almost made it through. So there's that piece. It looks like it's straight. Well, nope, there's a bend. That sucker's bent. See that? Still sharp. The edge. Looks like it took very minor damage. But that bend in that knife. Now, I'm not saying that that wouldn't have happened to one of these two knives. I don't know. I don't have another piece of wood like that to put these two knives through that. So I'm very curious to see if these would be able to handle that any better. But this had a really big bend in it. You guys saw that. So take that with that information what you will. The scales didn't loosen up at all. They look like they could have shifted a little bit, but they don't feel loose. So point here, I guess the takeaway at the end of the day is for 30 bucks, there's a lot better options out there. You could probably get a lot more of a sturdier knife with better fit and finish than you are with this. $30 isn't a lot of money, but you could easily save up another $30 or $40 and get something exponentially better than this. For the same price, you could get one of these. This won't hammer through a piece of wood like that, I'm pretty certain of. I mean, maybe it can, but this really couldn't either, because that is something you really can't recover from. I can try bending that back, but the chances of this breaking are probably pretty high. So I don't know if this heat treat is just low Rockwell then, because it didn't, you know, it didn't bend back, but it didn't snap. A lot of knives, if you put it through that, would just bend back to the original position, but that was a pretty gnarly bend, so I don't know for sure. But as far as carving and all those tasks, yeah, I can do it, but there's better options out there. Not saying that Beaver Craft can't make a decent budget tool, but I think this is just really flawed by its design. The handle ergonomics and the fit and finish just aren't that great. From a distance, it does look like a nice knife, but when you start using it and you really get your hands on the sheath, it's not that great. That being said, I do like a lot of their cheaper carving tools, but there's also better options in the budget territory for those too, like Flex Cut and all the other budget brands. So yeah, that's the Beaver Craft Bushcraft knife. The edge held up good. It really didn't hold up that, I mean, that last piece I batoned was probably the most extreme thing this went through. It's not a very sturdy knife. I'm pretty sure that wasn't sticking up before there. So really think that these handles shifted on me. You can see right here. And I don't think they're even cut to fit this. They don't like sand this over. They don't put the scales on and sand it to the tang. Like they're just not matching up correctly. Alrighty guys, well that's the end of the video. The Beaver Craft Bushcraft knife. So basically there are plenty of other options out there in this price range or a little bit more than this from multiple manufacturers in multiple countries that will outperform this knife and that will be better than this knife. I did get this knife for free, thankfully, so I didn't ruin a knife I actually paid money for. But even as a beater knife, I don't use this. I never grab this. I don't like using it. It's not pleasant to use. The ergonomics aren't good. And I would much rather just grab a different knife, even if it's just a beater knife I'm going to use. I would rather go and grab this Condor Bush Lore any day of the week. And you know, this knife I've had for over 10 years. This is a great truck knife, beater knife. Throw in your bag, don't worry about it. This thing is just poor design in my opinion. I would stay away from it. In my opinion, I would stay away from anything Beaver Craft. If you're just looking for some cheap tools at an entry-level price, like I said, there are way better options out there. Look around on the internet, ask somebody, ask me, ask other YouTubers, somebody who, somebody whose life revolves around stuff like this, and you'll get better opinions. But yeah. I mean, the edge is good, and the edge held up great, but just a poor design. Alrighty, well, that's it for this video. This is Timberfall Craft, and I'm Jake. Like and subscribe. Watch another video. I do lots of reviews. More to come. So, thanks for tuning in, and I'm out.